Hello everyone, my name is Yan, a PhD student at University of St Andrews. I'm doing research on the motivation of artists in Scotland. Leonie is the first artist I shadow, so I'm very happy to sit with her today in this lovely garden. So Leonie, could you introduce a piece of your work to us?
Sure, hello. This is a torso that I made a couple of years ago, and I'd like to start by explaining how it came about, because it was quite an important turn in my work, because I started using ceramic transfers which helped me tell a story onto the ceramics. I love finding the colours and shapes and moods in a piece, but this adds another layer. The novel was In the Country of Men by Hisham Natta. It's about the Gaddafi regime in Libya, and what I responded to most importantly was the description of being a woman in the country at that time, and I felt very strongly to represent the inability for the woman to express herself properly, and just the extreme situation in the country, the feeling of being trapped, and the terrible things that were going on behind the scenes. So I wanted to make a torso of a woman, and not make an object of beauty, but make it clear that the head and the arms have been severed rather than just broken off by some Roman. And then I wanted to, because the story is about writing a novel and writing about the things that were going on politically using this typewriter. So that was an important motif. And then the flag being broken and divided, and a lovely bit in the story where the little boy likened mulberries to angels, the fruit of angels. It was like a really positive moment in the story. So, and he liked to go swimming with his flippers, so this was like the sort of flipper angel wings and the mulberries in the middle. So this was quite a revelation to me, that I could do this with the photographs and the ceramics together to express something that was important to me. So I moved on to something else that I had learned about doing some geography, about the HIV crisis in sub-Saharan Africa. And again, what was important to me was the rights of women in these countries, and learning that women with better rights creates a better situation for the crisis. And you know, studies have shown that in countries where the women have better rights, the crisis is in decline. And I wanted to show the sort of universal importance of the rights of women, and the fact that it's, you know, back to Robert Burns' poetry written in 1787. You know, this was an important thing for our society even then, and that sort of brings in the Scottish element as well, living in Scotland. I suppose my work's a bit like a journal as well. This shape evolved when I lived in Spain in the mountains, because the mountains were very dry and craggy, and these edges represented the mountains when I first started making these vessels. And I often have a little bit of melted glass in the middle, which represents a laguna, which is like the water, the sort of the oasis in this dry landscape. So I brought this vessel that I created years ago in Spain to what I'm doing now, to sort of add another layer to what it's all about, because it's about me and my experience and my response to this knowledge about the crisis in Africa, and that also shows the snowdrop, which is expressing the idea that even in the north where it's cold and we have these little flowers that represent hope in the winter, we were all affected by this crisis. We're all being, damaged and vulnerable, and we're all being burnt by this crisis on the other side of the planet. So we have the planet here with all the hands around, obvious meaning in that. And
why you choose the color like orange and yellow on these two sides?
Well, colours are very important to me, obviously, and I respond to the colours in the landscape that I live in. So now living in this country, I often use colours that I find when I'm exploring the landscape and I take photographs. So I did quite a lot of colour sketches with paints first, and then tried to recreate that onto the work. So there's many things going on in one piece of work. I spend a lot of time walking around the countryside with my camera, trying to record the colours and the feelings, the landscape, the snowdrops in the early spring and the bluebells that follow, and then the poppies. And I try and bring all those colours into my work and make them relevant to the piece. It's the reds and the blues that came out for this one. This represents Brexit and the new president of America, and the fact that it's all very chaotic and fragmented and a bit burnt, and the figure, again, it's the torso without the arms and the head and legs. It's representing femininity as an object, and that also relates to Donald Trump's comments about women and the women's marches that followed in protest to his words, and that's what that bit in the middle is all about.
Mm-hmm. So it's trying to symbolize a woman who is wounded because of the whole thing is going on.
Yeah. This also is a bit more positive in that, again, it's about the situation in Britain, in the fact that I've got this little fragment of the British flag which has been a bit melted and fragmented at the back. So that's showing what I feel is happening in Britain at the moment, with all the division of opinion and what we're supposed to be doing and what we are doing, and an uncertain future. But I also have done quite a lot of work with the idea of goddesses from pagan times, and giving the woman a very powerful image. And I called this one Britannia because although it's a torso without its arms and head and legs, it has an eye in the middle, which is Britannia's eye. It's like the omniscient eye. So she's still in this torso, she's still powerful, and she's still hopeful that there can be a positive future. The idea of the torso is a very interesting one, because is it aesthetically pleasing? Because a lot of people seem to think it is, and I don't want it to be an object of beauty. So it's good to have lots of thoughts on what it means. Yeah. So more ideas. This is about the situation of all our vast amounts of plastic that we have, and the fact that there's this enormous swirling load of rubbish of plastic in the oceans, reaching for what is it? It's something like 1,000 miles it reaches. It's ridiculously huge. So that's what this is about. And this image of the seahorse by a Hoffman photographer who gave me permission to use his image of the seahorse pulling along this cotton bud. It's just, I find this very iconic and says all it needs to say about this dreadful situation.
Yeah, it seems that you are always concerned about the social problems and environmental problems in nowadays world, in our life. Yeah. So is that always a thing or a theme you want to express through your work?
Yeah, I think if you have the possibility to express what you feel about the world, it's the most important thing. Yeah, I remember seeing a little YouTube thing of Nina Simone saying that very same thing, saying, you know, it's the most important thing we can do is to try and raise some kind of awareness, question what's going on, and try and make a change to things that aren't working.
You have a very wonderful and interesting workshop. So could you tell us something about your workshop?
Well, it doesn't look that wonderful. It's like a cave, but it is wonderful to me because it's a great big space where I can put all my clay and glazes and create when it's raining inside. I think I'm very lucky to have it.
So we have this one, which is seeming quite different from other two you have introduced. So could you talk about this piece?
This is also a bit like my journal or diary, from bringing ideas from the past and into the present, because I've been making planets for about 20 years now. I like the idea of having something outside and something inside, and there being a bit of a story going on with the inside and outside, darkness and light. And in this one you've actually got a little laguna, a little lake in the bottom, and some little characters doing their private thing inside. You have to look in to see what they're doing. But on the outside I've got a planet which is going a bit red. It's getting a bit too hot. It's like the red planet. It's melting, and there's a polar bear clutching onto some ice, and there's a mammoth emerging from the melting ice. These are like little windows into the planet, and I guess it's like, if you imagine the planet is like a being, it's like looking into the heart of the planet. So it's a nice way to be able to tell stories inside something, as well as on the outside.
Do you have any other works which you feel very relevant to current?
This one is a work in progress. It's basically all about, again, the situation with Brexit, and the sound effects that we have in the background at the moment are really relevant because it represents the feeling in this laguna. Our lovely neighbour's dogs in the background. We've got a gold bullion made in 2017, which represents wealth in this country at the moment, contrasting to the introduction of universal credit and cutting funding to people on low income.
Could you introduce some of these blue lines you have somewhere?
I like using wax resist, and I like using Japanese and Chinese brushes, just to. It's almost like when I'm using them, I'm not thinking. I'm just letting my imagination flow with the brush, so I get interesting shapes, and hopefully it gives a movement to the piece. That's why I do that.
Is this pink and white, it's also the local colors which inspire you, or this represents some other meanings?
Yeah, I think I used the red and the white and the blue because it's like the colours in the British flag, but also I've been studying these sort of poppies and bluebells and snowdrops as well recently, so that's feels quite relevant, those colours.
We have another piece which is also seems talking about a very similar story, this one.
Yeah, this is the torso, and this is bringing in the women's rights into the story as well, because I always feel that it's important to have some kind of awareness that even today women are not on an equal footing to men in society, and I don't have the answer to that, but I like to raise the question and try and do it in a good and interesting way, and not bore people.
Have you ever heard people to comment on these pieces? Can they get the meaning you express, or usually they can't quite get the point you put this color and these things? And also you have some interesting comments that you don't realize you could be interpreted in that way.
Sure, yeah, it's really the best thing is when I show my work and then people respond to it. It's the best thing, and had some really great conversations. Mostly people get what I'm trying to say, but occasionally people don't. For instance, this torso, somebody reckoned it was the celebration of Britain and President Trump, which shocked me a bit, but it's always really interesting to hear what people think.
What's your next plan?
Next plan is working on the bees and trying to raise awareness for the fact we should preserve our bees.
And what's the inspiration behind this topic?
Bees. Yeah, just understanding that all the pesticides that we're using for our crops are killing off the bees, and in the future we're not going to have enough plants to sustain us. All the fruit's going to be gone, and everything's going to be out of balance. Yeah, we need to keep balance in the planet.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of your work are really interesting. And do you have any final thoughts you want to share with us?
Just, I hope the ideas keep flowing and that people keep responding. That's all I could wish for.
Yes, thank you very much for today's conversation.